Okay, everybody, we're going to get started. Welcome. Today is Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. It's 5:45. This is Scranton City Council's regular caucus for the week. So I want to welcome everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. We'll start off with the agenda. There is no new business on the agenda in terms of legislation. We did not receive anything from the administration. We do have quite a few third order pieces. You'll notice the single tax office report is corrected from last week. There was an error, so we're accepting the amended version of that. Otherwise, the only thing probably to point out is the correspondence that we received from the mayor and Chief Graziano regarding Scranton Police Department policies. I'm sure all of you received some of the emails from various residents and from people, I think, from around the country about some of the police department policies and techniques in light of everything that's been going on with the protest and the death of George Floyd. So the mayor and Chief Graziano had put something together, and we put it in third order on our agenda, and Councilman McAndrew had addressed that last week. So the only thing that I plan on bringing up tonight is two things. I'll give you guys a heads up on the garbage bills. I think I mentioned this last week, but I've been just got another resident who had some concerns about sending their check in like 2 to 3 weeks ago, and it still has not been cashed. So I did talk to Wayne Beck. He said that because of the reduced staffing and working from home, it's taking a little longer to get the payments processed. There's a really heavy volume of, because of people taking advantage of the discount period. So all payments received on or before June 15th will receive the discount, obviously, but it's difficult to predict how soon all the payments will actually be applied. The older payments are naturally processed first. So that's the answer that I got. But
Bill, do you know if, will they be accepting postmarks?
I think so, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, they should be. So that was that. The only other thing I wanted to bring up is I'm going to ask that a letter be sent to the mayor and the law department regarding Northeast Revenue Services. I did talk to Attorney Esker today to give her a heads up about some of the things that I'll be asking. Basically, it goes back to some of the conditions that were stated in Attorney Esker's letter to Sean Chamonix from NRS on October 16th, 2019. She had requested NRS to fulfill several obligations before they were going to part ways December 31st, 2019, before that date had changed. So I'm just going to run through and ask for an update on where the city is with all of those items. So those are the only two things I had. Lori, do you have anything?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Kevin, do you have anything?
Just to report, I figure I'd give you an update. The city is still waiting for the court to reschedule the hearing on its petition to continue to levy the local services tax, the LST, at the fiscal year 2019 rate. So that'd be $156. It has not been rescheduled yet. With regard to the appeal that the city has taken from Judge Gibbons' order that was issued in December, all the briefs have been filed, including amicus curiae briefs from the Pennsylvania Municipal League, the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, the City of Pittsburgh, Senator Blake, and Senate Democratic Leader Jay Costa. They have all filed amicus briefs. The issue is going to be decided on the briefs without oral argument. So that's pending. I just checked on both those matters. In addition, I spoke with the city solicitor, I'll be working with her on additional legislation for small business loans, which we anticipate will be on next week's meeting agenda. We thought we might receive that before tonight's meeting, but it's not yet. I assume it's not completed. That's basically it right now.
Okay. All right, great. Thanks, Kevin.
And Bill, if you want me to, I can follow up on that October 16, 2019 letter that you referenced.
Yeah, sure. I would appreciate that.
I'll send a note out.
Okay, great. Kyle, do you have anything?
I'm gonna Lori, just on the LST stuff, we never received a response about what has been put in escrow since May 1st, correct?
No, we have not.
Okay. And then I'm also just going to bring up, like, Bill, have you heard anything from the mayor or the administration about what the plans are for reopening City Hall, you know, as we move into different phases from the governor's office?
I haven't heard anything official. I did speak to the mayor today, and she had stated that they are putting up like glass partition in licensing and inspections. But in terms of like bringing employees back, I did ask that, and the mayor's answer was the same as last week. I asked her just this afternoon that it's still apparently a moving target, and there, you know, she didn't have an answer as to when that would occur. And the exact date of when City Hall is going to be open again, I don't know that either.
But, you know, just in terms of developing a plan, even from our end on how we move back to normal, we can't do anything until we have an idea from the administration on, you know, what their process is going to be towards City Hall.
Right, exactly.
So I was just gonna, you know, maybe just bring that, maybe we could send correspondence just saying, like, you know, what is the plan? You know, let's start developing a plan so we could develop a plan then too.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I mean, when we do eventually get back in City Hall, I would imagine that, and I talked to Lori a little bit about this, that, you know, we would have to make sure that we followed all the CDC guidelines and the Pennsylvania Department of Health guidelines, whatever they may be at that time. I would imagine that if they're the same as they are now, we would probably all have to wear masks, number one. Social distance, so 6 feet apart. What that looks like, probably 3 people up on the dais and then 2 people down at that table. We'll have to figure that out space-wise. And then in terms of the public, we'd have to space the seating out so that they're 6 feet apart. We do have the luxury, as all of you know, of having the balcony, so we could utilize that as well. But yeah, I do think we'll have to nail all that stuff down prior to City Hall opening, so that when we go back, we do have a plan of action, and we'll be in touch with Lori on that and see how that operates.
All right. And then I'm probably just going to bring up some questions with the furloughs, you know, like who's going to be called back when, you know, and how many won't be called back? You know, and if there is even the slightest possibility that someone won't be called back, you know, I think the administration needs to start being more upfront with some of these employees instead of just leaving them in the dark. Mm-hmm. And just be honest with them, and, you know, here's what it is. And then also, like, who's performing this work? I know you brought up the garbage bills. Like, who's processing garbage bills? Who's doing health inspections? Who's doing housing inspections? Who's responding to quality of life complaints? You know, who's overseeing purchasing and bidding, and all, you know, all the things that are just not being done under the people that are furloughed based off their, you know, their job classification.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's really, I mean, all I'm going to have tonight.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Kyle. Mark, do you have anything?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you. And Tom, do you have anything?
I was glad to hear Kyle talk about getting a plan here to open up City Hall. That's what one of the questions I was going to ask is when we're going to get back into chambers and when we're going to start seeing that process. So I think he covered all of the bases on that. As of last week, I mean, with some of the things that we got from some citizens about the police department, I think Mark pretty much got proactive with that, and with yourself and the chief, and you covered all the areas that can be an issue. And I think I was happy to see those responses from him, because I think a few years back, the police department got in a situation with mental health, and I think they covered all the bases at that time. So to think back of what year that was, I mean, it's got to be almost a decade here that they've been using the things that are being requested across the nation right now. So it's good to see that we're on top of that one. I did hear back from Ms. Cipriani about the Kaiser Valley, what I asked last week about the OECD project from 81 Kaiser Valley, and I don't think that they have the records for that. So with that, I mean, one of the testing requirements that the city was asking for the community center there, I thought maybe we'd be able to get around the cost, but I don't think if we don't have the records, we're not going to get around the cost. But that's all. None of that stuff I'll be bringing up tonight, but just giving you an update.
Yeah, you should reach out to Gary DeBillio. Lori, wasn't Gary DeBillio involved in?
Yeah, no,
He was the president, I believe. I would suggest Donnie King. He may know. He's a tremendous resource.
Yeah, I spoke with Gary today, and I've been in contact with him and Sandy Obshinsky, who did the grant for the project.
Oh, good.
I've also spoke with some of the engineers on the project. So I've been coordinating with everybody, but there's two sticking points. One is the soil, and one is the water infiltration studies, or something that need to be done before the city could go to PennDOT with a permit. So I'm just trying to alleviate one of those studies. Maybe it was work we already had done, but can't seem to find the information.
Okay, yeah, that's that's an important project over there, and it's always an issue, obviously, as you guys know. Anything else, Tom?
No, that's it.
The only thing other thing I want to mention too is in terms of getting back in City Hall when that happens, the green phase or whatever that looks like. I definitely don't think we'll be able to have a caucus in Lori's office, just because it's cramped in there as it is, and that is open to the public, and just wouldn't be good with everything going on. So we'll probably have to have that either in the governor's room or in council chambers. So that's something else that we'll have to iron out prior to getting back in City Hall. Okay. Lori, do you have anything on that, just from like a standpoint of being in the building every day?
I'm not. You just mean to offer to how we would be functioning once the building would reopen,
Right.
or and then how it would affect the council meetings. Those things that you've already mentioned, what we've talked about, the seating. The microphones, that's my main concern.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, because the microphone, well, the sound system, as we know, is not the best in there anyway, but it's microphone. If we were going to see two council persons down at that table, we'll just have to, I'm not sure. We could maybe contact our sound person, the gentleman who takes care of that. Let me make a note about that. No, I mean, it's,
we might also want to, sorry, I don't mean that, but we might also want to look at ways of how to disinfect the speaker's microphone too, in between speakers. That's something we might want to put on the list there.
Good point.
Yeah, so that's something that we'll iron out prior to opening back up here and getting back in City Hall. So
Yeah.
And we may want to look into, technologies that would address the situation where somebody doesn't feel comfortable coming and making a public hearing in chambers. They still want it may be necessary for a public hearing, but they don't want to come in to City Hall, that they could do it remotely, and maybe leave the door open that people can still participate by written submissions if they don't.
yeah, that's a good idea. We can continue. We might as well continue with that, because you're right. There may still be people, if they're immunocompromised or something, they can't be with crowds of people. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Sure, we could continue in our ad with that.
Okay. Anything else on that or any other subject?
Yeah, one more. Prior to the start of this, I did ask about the mayor's proclamation that we got. I think it came in late, so we're not going to be looking at it in third order, correct?
No, we didn't get it in time to put it in third order, but I think it should be on the agenda for next week.
I was just asking with the answered some of that. What was the reason for the extension? Was it due to funding, or what was the, did we get any kind of justification as to why we were extending it out? So I don't know if we want to put that on record or if anybody else knows.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to go through the whole thing, but I think the justification, Tom, is right within the, I'm trying to look it up now. I don't have a paper copy of it. I think it's right within the proclamation. And basically, it's just that I think it's because City Hall was closed. They had to issue the proclamation to keep City Hall closed to the public until we're in the green phase.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else from anybody? Okay. All right. Well, it's 6:01. We finished a little early here. Our meeting starts at 6:30, so we'll come back and start our regular meeting at 6:30. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna get started. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and also for those who have passed away in our community. Let us also once again take a special moment of silence tonight for people in our community and throughout the world who are suffering or who have passed away from the coronavirus. Let us think about them and their families at this time, that they may find peace. Let us think now about the doctors, the nurses, the researchers, and all medical professionals and first responders who seek to heal and help those affected and who put themselves at risk in the process. May they find protection and peace. Whether we are home or abroad, surrounded by many people suffering from this illness, or only a few, let us stick together, endure together, mourn together, persist and prepare together, and in place of our anxiety, let us continue to hope and find peace. Thank you. Ms. Carrera, roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Present.
Mr. McAndrew,
Present?
Dr. Rothchild, Mr. Donahue,
Here.
Mr. Gaughan.
Here, please let the record reflect that Dr. Rothchild is having some issues calling in at this point, but she did just send me a message and she'll be on her way shortly. Mrs. Reed, please dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Thank you. Third order, 3A, recommendation received from the city engineer dated May 22, 2020, regarding a new streetlight to be installed at 600 Seymour Avenue. 3B, recommendation received from the city engineer dated May 22, 2020, regarding a new streetlight to be installed at northerly end of Earth Court. 3C, proclamation received from Mayor Paige G. Cognetti declaring June 1, 2020, a day of mourning and lament for all those our city and our nation have lost to COVID-19. 3D, minutes of the Scranton Police Pension Commission meeting held April 15, 2020. 3E, Single Tax Office City Funds Distributed Comparison Report, 2019-2020, year-to-date May 31, 2020, corrected copy. 3F, correspondence received from Mayor Paige G. Cognetti and Chief of Police Carl R. Graziano, dated June 4, 2020, regarding outline of current Scranton Police Department policies.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. Are there any comments on any of the third order items?
I'd like to make a comment regarding the outline of current police policies. I stated in caucus that a few years back that I think the police department looked at these policies and they have a pretty good procedure in place. And some of the comments that we got from citizens in the last week or so, that they wanted issues addressed that had already been addressed by the police department over the last decade, I would say. And I've seen some of these things in regards to mental health in action. So there are some things that are working in our area and surrounding areas.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Any other comments on third order items?
I'll just piggyback on Mr. Schuster. I'm just glad we're in compliance. I mean, we've been for a while, and that's just great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. Anyone else? Okay, if not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
I have a reminder. This I made an announcement a couple weeks ago. The Right Center blood drives, they're coming up. They're being done for the American Red Cross. They're Friday, June 12th from 11 to 4. Friday, July 31st from 12 to 5. Both are at the new facility, the new Right Center facility, which is on 501 South Washington Avenue. I'm sorry. Appointments are being done with 15-minute intervals, and you can register online or by calling the Red Cross of Northeast PA. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And real quick, I just want, for the record, I just want to state that Dr. Rothchild has joined us. Dr. Rothchild, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry about that, guys. I'm having some technical issues tonight, but I am here.
Okay, thank you. No problem. Okay, anyone else have any announcements? Okay, I just have one, and I've made this quite a few times now since we've been in the Zoom meetings, but if anyone would like to comment on agenda items or city business, please send those comments in writing to our city clerk, Lori Reed, by emailing lreed@scrantonpa.gov. Council will accept public comments until the day of our meeting, which is Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Public comment is reviewed by the council prior to our meeting and is placed then on the official record and in the minutes of our meetings. Council's agenda is being posted for public review the Friday before our Tuesday meeting. Our agenda and minutes can be accessed by going to www.scrantonpa.gov and clicking on the city council page. And that's all I have. Mrs. Reed?
Fourth order, citizens participation.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. I'd ask now if someone would please make a motion to accept public comment from the following individuals: Patricia Nestor, Faye Franis, Eileen Dorsey, and Marie Schumacher.
I'll make a motion to accept public comment.
Thank you. There's been a motion made. There's been a second, or has there been a second?
Second.
There's been a second on the question.
Oh,
sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I'm sorry. On the question, the one from Mrs. Nestor, I will address in fifth order.
Okay, great. Thank you. The only other thing I wanted to mention on public comment is two things. So Ms. Franis had sent some comments in. Mrs. Reed, can you just double check with the administration tomorrow whether or not they can get back to us with answers to Mrs. Franis's questions about the garbage fees?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the one of the other citizens that had addressed council was Eileen Dorsey. She had asked several questions. I can answer some of them, I think, right off of the bat. They're calling for city budget data to be made readily available and accessible to the public on a quarterly basis. The city budget is posted on the city's website, www.scrantonpa.gov. One of the things that council has been calling for in the past was for data to be posted in terms of the budget on a quarterly basis. So I would agree with that statement and a call for that. Unfortunately, we're not at that point yet. There was a push, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, for the city to use a platform called open.gov, something to that effect. For whatever reason, that kind of fell through the cracks. I have talked to the mayor in the last few months, and I know one of the goals of her administration, I think that one of the goals of this council would be to get that data up for public review. So it's not up there now, but I'm hopeful that, you know, within the next few months to the next year, that would be an initiative that would be able to take place. Her second question talks about the institution of community-led public safety teams as well as citizens review boards for the Scranton Police Department. When will this happen? That would be a decision that would be made by Mayor Cognetti and Chief Graziano. And on our agenda tonight, I believe Chief Graziano did address the citizens review boards in his comments. And I've sent quite a few emails out to people with similar questions, and he has addressed that. She also calls for police officers to be removed from schools and wants to know when that will happen. I'm not in favor of that at all. I think that would be a huge mistake. So I don't think anyone would want to entertain that at this point. And how will the city of Scranton expand police oversight measures and keep those measures in place? Again, I'd refer to Chief Graziano's letter that's on the agenda. And lastly, Marie Schumacher had submitted several questions. She stated that she wanted information in third order this week in terms of the small business loan program. I did state last week that we were going to put that in third order, but after talking with Mrs. Reed and looking at it, that's not something we would generally put in third order because it's already on the city's website. We sent it to Mrs. Schumacher, and that's really more for the small businesses. If anybody's interested in taking a look at that, it's already posted on the city's website. There's several other questions that, of course, we'll forward to the administration. One of the questions, why was the 2020 real estate tax levy only on land and not improvements? I thought I answered this last week or the week before, but I'll just reiterate that the reasoning provided by the previous business administrator and Pell was that putting it on land and not improvements would be less punitive on the taxpayer. And Mrs. Reed, if you could also follow up with the administration just in terms of previous questions that Ms. Schumacher has asked that have not been answered yet.
I will, thank you.
Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved. Mrs. Reed?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. Councilman Schuster, do you have any motions or comments at this time?
The only comment I'd like to make is it's nice to see businesses start opening and us moving into some more lenient phases.
Okay, thank you. Councilman McAndrew, do you have any motions or comments?
Yes, I have a few. So last week, 2 questions were posed to me by concerned citizens, and then I relayed them to Mrs. Reed to reach out to Chief Graziano, and then also the one that came today I want to address. So the one, thank you. First of all, thank you, Chief Graziano, for your swift responses to these concerned citizens. So the first question last week was how many text while driving citations have been issued? So he responded and said 37 since 2016, and it has been implemented, but difficult to enforce. An example of being, a driver has to admit to it, first of all, and or an officer has to actually witness a person sending or receiving a text. But in light of that, also what could be a little confusing is when this is being observed, the driver might be using his GPS, which is not considered texting. He might be scrolling through a number or dialing a number. So I hope that answers the question of that concerned citizen. And the second one was, how do we get a speed bump study done? And the response from the chief was, speed bumps are actually illegal. They're not allowed in the city streets. They can cause damage to city vehicles. Example, the DPW trucks or blades during plowing. And these are also safety issues with trucks and drivers. So any that have been illegally constructed bumps that have been found around the city have been removed. So thanks for that answer. And then today we received public comment question from Mrs. Nestor. And her question was, other places she has lived allowed citizens ride-alongs with the police. She called a couple of years ago and was told Scranton does not allow this. As a way of being transparent and allowing involvement and understanding, Scranton Police should allow citizens to do a ride-along. So the chief had his response was, we do have a very active ride-along program and has been in place for many years. This individual, maybe Mrs. Nestor, might have called the police department asking about this, maybe during the COVID, during COVID-19 restrictions. And if that's the case, we obviously have the program currently suspended because of restrictions. However, it will be opened up once again as the COVID-19 restrictions are released. So at that point, she can inquire again. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman McAndrew. Dr. Rothchild, do you have any motions or comments?
No, I don't have any. No, I don't
Okay,
have any motions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rothchild. Councilman Donahue, do you have any motions or comments at this time?
Oh, quick comments. Yesterday I met with Tom Priambo, the new director of DPW, and I just want to thank him for taking the time out of his schedule. We just went over a couple of initiatives that will be upcoming, and what we see are some of the deficiencies within DPW and how we could better operate. And I was also made aware today that I know we were told that the the ad for the RFP for the engineering service for street paving went out last week, but they needed to make a couple corrections to it regarding ADA ramps. So that will, I believe that's going to go out either later. It either went out later this afternoon to the Times for the ad, or it will go out tomorrow morning. So it should be in the paper in the next couple of days there. Ms. Reed, would we be able to send correspondence to the administration regarding the reopening of City Hall and what processes we're going to use moving forward with that?
Certainly.
And on top of that too, just some questions on the furloughs, because as we reopen City Hall, hopefully, some of the city employees that have been furloughed will be called back. So what will be the process? And I could send all this to you in an email too. But what will be the process on how they will be called back? When will they be called back? How many won't be called back? And if there's even the slightest possibility that any worker won't be called back, the administration has to just be upfront and honest with those employees instead of keeping them in the dark on their employment status. And I think council also needs to be provided with detailed explanations of who will take on the duties of these positions if certain employees aren't called back. And also just who is performing the work now. A couple examples: who's processing garbage bills, who's performing health inspections of restaurants, who's performing housing inspections, who's responding to quality of life complaints, who's overseeing the bidding and purchasing process, just as a couple examples. So we'll pass that along to the administration and see what kind of answers we get. And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Donahue. I just have one comment. I'd like for a letter to be sent to the mayor and the city law department, the city solicitor, Jessica Eskra. I would like an update in regards to Northeast Revenue Services and the conditions that were stated in Attorney Eskra's letter to Sean Chamonix from NRS on October 16, 2019. Specifically, I'd like a copy of all correspondence between the city of Scranton and NRS from January 1st, 2014 to present. As part of this correspondence back in 2019, the city asked that NRS ensure the prompt exchange of all databases in a format acceptable to the city for all tax and refuse collections to the city and/or its designee. I'd like to know if that has happened yet. NRS's IT department and the city's IT department would agree to work together in good faith to achieve the timely transition of data. I'd like to know if that has occurred yet. NRS will upload the 2019 payments to its server to be combined with the data that will be transferred to the city and/or its designee. I'd like to know if that has happened yet. NRS will proceed with the filing of delinquent refuse liens for calendar year 2018 as the same have already been prepared and are ready for filing. It says, however, NRS will not proceed with the filing of 2018 delinquent tax liens. I'd like to get an update on that and know if that has happened yet. Also, it states that NRS will provide the city with a total dollar amount of costs advanced on liens that have been filed on behalf of the city. At that time, the city wanted to see this amount within 10 business days of October 16, 2019. So I'd like to know if that had occurred. And the city would require assurances in writing from NRS that the termination of this contract would not result in litigation. And I'd like to know if that has happened yet. So Mrs. Reed and Solicitor Hayes, if you could put that together and get that out to the law department and the mayor, I would appreciate it. And that is all I have. Mrs. Reed?
Thank you. 5B, no business at this time. 6th order, 6A, no business at this time. 7th order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, file of the Council number 9, 2020, amending Section 13 as amended by Ordinance number 29, 1994, and Ordinance number 195, 2003 of the Administrative Code entitled Appropriation in order to require Council's approval prior to the transfer of an unexpended balance of an appropriation item to fund a new job classification or increase the budgeted salary of a job classification.
Thank you, Mrs. Reed. As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
Thank you. On the question? Ms. Carrera, roll call, please.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
Kyle, I don't think we couldn't hear your vote on that.
Mr. Gaughan,
Yes, and just hang on one second. We'll see if,
Yes.
yes, okay.
Okay.
That was, thank you, Ms. Carrera. That was 5 yeses. I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted. Mrs. Reed?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I apologize.
Oh, that's
7B, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution number 36, 2020, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to waive the residency requirements for Eileen Cipriani in her capacity as Executive Director of the Office of Economic and Community Development for the City of Scranton, subject to certain conditions.
Thank you. As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7B. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a second on the question.
On the
No,
question, not to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to be voting no against this resolution for 2 reasons. One, I think all employees should follow the same rules and should be treated equally and fairly. And I also don't believe that this is fair for the taxpayers of Scranton.
Okay, anyone else on the question?
Yes, also, I mean, my position hasn't changed in a week, and I'm just going to recap what I said last week. So my no vote is nothing personal or political, but it's one of principle. Like I said last week, I live here. I have to look at 100 plus firefighters, 100 plus police officers, almost 100 DPW workers, 40 plus furloughed employees that lost their benefits, uncertain if they're even going to get their job back or when they're coming back, that live here, have stake in the game. So I'm all about being fair and equitable. If there's a rule, I follow the rules. This is my vote, and I'll own this vote, and I'm okay with this vote. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the question? Roll call, please. Ms. Carrera?
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew,
No.
Dr. Rothchild,
Yes.
Mr. Donahue,
No.
Mr. Gaughan.
Yes. I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted. If there is no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see everybody next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.